Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Training Throughout the VISTA Lifecycle. Thank you for taking the time and expressing interest in learning about training over the course of a VISTA member service year and in what ways we can all better support members through training and development opportunities. Training and skills development are essential to their personal and professional success, the member satisfaction, and the project sustainability. My name is Eric Powell, and I am an AmeriCorps VISTA training specialist with the Corporation for National and Community Service. I served as a VISTA member and a VISTA leader and had the wonderful opportunity to be involved in various trainings and educational opportunities during service. In my current role as VISTA training specialist here at VISTA headquarters, I work with supervisors and sponsors to provide training on various elements of the VISTA program. I'll be your host for today's webinar and presenter, as well as facilitating the chat and Q&A activities at the end of the session. I'm thrilled also to have two wonderful guest speakers with us today from the AmeriCorps VISTA Training Unit, Khadija Carr and Chris Hawks.
Hello everyone, I am Khadija Carr and I am an AmeriCorps VISTA Training Specialist at CNCS. I served as a VISTA member from 2015 to 2016. And in my position on the VISTA Training Unit, I coordinate VISTA member orientations, member in-service trainings, as well as the webinar series for VISTA members.
And hello everyone, welcome. I am Chris Hawks, and I'm also an AmeriCorps VISTA Training Specialist at CNCS. I served in Peace Corps in Belize from 2010 to 2012 for my past national service experience. And my role on the VISTA Training Unit is very similar to Khadija's, who you just met, in that I also focus on orienting VISTA candidates and members just prior to their start date and the training throughout their VISTA service.
Thank you both for joining us today, especially with your experience and knowledge on the VISTA Training Unit. We're really excited to have you here. We also want to briefly mention Kim and Steve from our partners at LSI that are on this call helping us manage the Adobe Connect technology. You may also see them in the chat, posting some helpful links and assisting as needed. So let's briefly talk about our goals for today. By the end of the session, you should be able to learn about what training is and why it is essential for VISTA member success, which should be pretty obvious to most of us. Become familiar with the trainings and development opportunities offered by VISTA headquarters. Recognize specific timeframes during the VISTA life cycle that training is necessary and will have a high impact. Identify specific timeframes at various points in the VISTA life cycle where training may be necessary or at least ideal in helping to further motivate and retain your VISTA member. This may involve your organization putting together a training or simply enabling the VISTA member to attend a training conducted by someone else. And we hope that you'll better be able to assist your VISTA members with identifying training and development needs using the VISTA assignment description or VAD. So we're going to cover a lot today in looking at today's agenda. We'll look at the importance of training, briefly talking about what it is, how do we explain it, and why it's essential. We're going to briefly talk about trainings from VISTA headquarters so that you have an idea of what trainings we offer and how the VISTA program orients and trains the VISTA members. We'll then provide some training examples of how organizations and people provide training, which may give you ideas if you want to create or adapt a training. We'll then segue into VISTA campus resources and places you can go on the campus for additional information. And we'll finally end with questions. And remember, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please post your questions in the chat panel, and we will also have time at the end of the presentation to answer them verbally and in writing. So to start, you're probably familiar with many elements of training and why it's important, so we won't bore you with the details. We know that training does look slightly different from project to project and even from organization to organization. This explanation of training will help pinpoint specific elements that make training what it is in the realm of AmeriCorps VISTA. Some of you already responded to this question at the beginning of the webinar. We bring it up again in case some of you missed it or if you have other ideas that you want to contribute. The question is, what kind of training do you currently offer your VISTA members? Be very specific in your answer and definitely jot down any creative and innovative ideas you see. A few people earlier mentioned that they do training on diversity and inclusion, training, online trainings, presentation creation and feedback, which is great. Some people mentioned that they do trainings on the VISTA campus to give their VISTA member a general idea of how it works. I saw a mention of conflict resolution training, diversity awareness, training about how to interact with the community and communications. And then I'll mention just a couple more. Trainings in support of how their specific organization works and how that relates to an orientation. And then I also saw mention of training on how people can adjust to a new community, kind of around community entry. So these are great responses. Definitely keep them coming as we continue, because these examples you give really show how you support your VISTA members and the resources that they need to succeed in their service, because the more your project benefits as well from all of these resources. So moving on, we certainly want you to be creative and think outside the box when it comes to training. As you get to know your VISTA members and learn more about the VISTA program, consider alternative ways to train your VISTA members that will provide significant, productive, and positive impact for them. Be innovative when helping your VISTA members identify new ways to get training and have some fun with it. Your VISTA members will as well and may develop new insight into what training could look like even in a potentially abstract and non-traditional way. It could even include a training as part of potential monthly in-person or virtual meetings with VISTA members, perhaps led by a VISTA leader if you have one. You can have your VISTA members train other VISTA members on a topic that one of them learned and would be useful to share with others. So when you look at the trainings offered by the VISTA program that we'll talk about in a minute, trainings that are offered by your VISTA project, and other trainings that could be useful for your VISTA member, use your imagination. Try something new. Be different. So let's talk a little bit about what training is, even though this is probably familiar to you. Training is dedicated to the development of skills and knowledge. Whereas an orientation is typically broad and general and covers information to get someone started, training specifically focuses on improving performance in a very specific role. Next, training ideally is inclusive of the audience's needs. It is important for you to think of areas in which your VISTA members can use training and also ask them to consider training opportunities. You want them to participate in the process of identifying training so that they are engaged and involved. Be sure to encourage them to take ownership of their service and tell you why they need and what they need, along with suggested ways for them to get that training. Training also may occur once or several times. Depending on the needs of the VISTA member, sometimes one training is enough, but there may be times where continuous training is needed to hone a skill that may be more complex. Take the time in your weekly meetings to work with your VISTA members to identify what works best and adjust trainings as needed so that you can customize it to your VISTA members. And then training can also be a 360-degree cycle of learning. Always learning, then putting into practice what they've learned, then showing what they've learned by teaching it. Training and learning are fully immersive experiences that work well together throughout the VISTA life cycle. While the VISTA members are often the recipients of training, you'll want to help them learn by giving them opportunities to perform a task and then to teach it. As they settle in and get situated, they learn from staff, community members, board members, and more. Then they may start cautiously contributing and doing the activities of their VAD, and then they progress through this cycle of service. They then have the information that they need to transfer their knowledge, products, and relationships through teaching and training others. This learning, doing, and teaching process is cyclical and continues throughout the year of service. It gives the VISTA member additional insight into solving problems and accomplishing the tasks of the VAD, and it also helps to prepare VISTA members for the future. The essence of training helps to explain the importance of training. As we know, training is important because whether your VISTA member is skilled in a particular area or not, training helps them focus their attention on that specific activity and gives them a strong foundation from which they can grow. Training helps VISTA members recognize and utilize their strengths. It might stem from the applicant's resume and interviews that you conducted earlier, continuing into service, because training has the great potential to build off of those members' strengths and work to find ways to help them put their skills into action. Effective training incorporates and brings together multiple ideas from multiple people. Going back to the cycle of service, training is a continual, full-cycle approach where everyone is learning, doing, and teaching in the training. Training also connects people to each other and to resources and allows time for formal and unstructured time for networking. And VISTA members can identify future needs and areas where they want and need to develop. Various training materials and conversations may spark curiosity and help VISTA members to recognize other necessary skills and knowledge for their VISTA service. The image on the screen represents a typical experience for a VISTA member as they make their way through their year of service. This is adapted from work done by Ken Blanchard on what he called situational leadership. Often when starting a new job or endeavor, we're really enthusiastic, even if we have no idea what we're doing. A short while later, we may have second thoughts about whether we made the right decision or if this was the right thing for us to do. But we decide to stick with it and start to learn some things. Then we try some things out, and maybe we start feeling a little bit better about what we're doing. Before long, though, we run into a problem, challenge, or obstacle, and things don't seem fun anymore. The novelty has worn off, and so has our enthusiasm. We know that everyone is different, of course, but we often see VISTAs at this stage about 3 months into service. Does this perhaps sound familiar to anyone who has a VISTA who's expressed these concerns? The good news is that usually we don't stay there for very long. We make more progress, we overcome the challenges, have a few more wins, and then build our confidence as we go. So what we want you to think about is, when you think about a specific group of members that you may have multiple members, you may only have one, but think specifically about a specific group of members who started around the same time. Where would you say that they are within the VISTA life cycle? We're going to do an activity in a minute, and we do not want you to base your response on the time frame at the bottom of the image, but instead place your mark based on whether you think your VISTA members are more enthusiastic, having second thoughts, disillusioned learners, feel like contributors, or are peak performers. And for you to do this activity, we're going to use a feature in Adobe Connect called the annotation tool. We'll first provide instructions on how to use it, then we'll turn it to you so you can put your mark on the VISTA lifecycle. So in a second, you will first select the square icon in the drawing tool pane on the left side of the slide to activate the annotation toolbar. Then you will select the arrow next to the square to expand your shape options, and we ask you to select the X. Move your mouse to the location on the map where you are serving and where your members are in the life cycle. And then we ask you to not drag or you'll cover other VISTA supervisors' marks. And if you are unable to use the annotation tool, for example, if you're viewing on a smartphone, you can type your response in the chat panel. Okay, so now you should be able to access the annotation tool, so you can go ahead and use it. Again, we're looking for you to select a single or a group of specific VISTA members who started around the same time, and ignoring the time frame on the bottom, indicate where on the squiggly line in images you would say that your VISTA members are in the VISTA life cycle. And I see a bunch of responses coming in. Quite a few are focused on enthusiastic beginner, which means a lot of you have groups of VISTAs that are just starting service and they're really excited. Some people further down past the disillusioned learner stage that are getting towards the contributor phase. A couple of people towards the peak performer stage. And as we see more responses coming in, it's obviously evident that with many supervisors on the call, VISTAs will have started at different times in their service, but also maybe at different phases of their service. And because this is a cyclical process, people may go back to some of these phases more than one time. But I would say the vast majority of people are between enthusiastic beginner and second thoughts, and then someone really underlined contributor. So I hope that means your VISTAs are successfully contributing to the VISTA program. You may have a general idea of where your VISTA members are, and even though all of you on this webinar are at different stages in your VISTA grant, it's clear that everyone's all over the map, which is great, in this specific activity. We know that we cannot do it in this specific webinar, but it would be actually quite fascinating if you did this activity with your VISTA members, then you show them your responses and compare them to see if you are both similar. So next, I'm actually going to welcome our guest speaker, Khadija, to talk about the trainings and development opportunities that are offered by the VISTA Headquarters program.
Thanks so much, Eric. The VISTA Training Unit at VISTA Headquarters in Washington, D.C. offers orientations, trainings, and professional development opportunities to VISTA members. Of course, we offer trainings for leaders and supervisors as well, but we are going to focus on webinars for VISTA members for this section. Let's take a look at what is already provided to members so that you understand what resources your members can access and how you can supplement and build off of this existing information. Okay, so I'm breaking the rules a little bit. This webinar is about training, but the first event I'm explaining to you that's offered by the VISTA program is an orientation. So we want you to know what we provide and when in the VISTA lifecycle it occurs. That may help you determine additional timeframes when training would be useful. So after the VISTA applicant's my.americorps.gov application is approved and that individual is placed into a VISTA term of service, the individual becomes a VISTA candidate. They're then scheduled for a VISTA member orientation. All elements of the VISTA member orientation are outlined on the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus, which is the website where we direct all VISTA candidates. You should look at it to familiarize yourself with it as well, because we will not go into detail about each aspect of the orientation on this webinar, but we will highlight its contents and the time frame. So that orientation contains pre-service coursework, onboarding forms, the countdown to VISTA service webinar, launching your VISTA service webinar, a criminal history check, on-site orientation and training, early service coursework, and VISTA gear. Now we will briefly mention the timing of these items. In terms of the VISTA lifecycle and timing, here is sort of the general schedule regarding VISTA member orientation communications and pre-work deadlines so that you can factor them into your on-site orientation and training. We often call this OSAT. In the 2 weeks that lead up to the member's start date, the candidate receives what's called a guide to entering VISTA service. And this is sent via email, and it contains dates and deadlines of required pre-work and webinars. There's also submission required for the pre-work. They must attend the 2 webinars that I mentioned. Those are the Countdown to VISTA Service webinar and the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. And on that second webinar, which occurs on the first day of service, that's actually where they're taking their oath of service. And so when they do that, they submit the electronic oath in the my.americorps.gov account immediately following that webinar. Continuing into service, here are a few more components of the VISTA member orientation. So the VISTA member receives the on-site orientation and training conducted by the VISTA supervisor or sponsor. The VISTA member is highly encouraged to complete early service coursework. And a few weeks into service, the member receives an email with specific instructions on how to order their free VISTA gear. And that only happens after all required pre-work is complete and their electronic oath is successfully submitted. The VISTA members also must submit hard copy fingerprints, which are due to VISTA headquarters no later than 30 days from their first day of service.
And also regarding VISTA webinars, so currently serving VISTA members are certainly all invited to attend our monthly 90-minute webinars as part of a training in professional development throughout their year of service. These webinars are free and considered part of a VISTA member's service, so VISTAs are permitted to attend the webinar during their VISTA service hours. Webinars are usually separated into two categories based on things VISTA members need to know about living as a VISTA, so that could include something like VISTA benefits, how to serve effectively, and possibly looking at life after VISTA. And the other category is on the work and service as well that VISTA members do each day. So this could include volunteer engagement, resource development, outreach and communication, various aspects of poverty, and tools for VISTA service. So all of these webinars are recorded and all are available on demand on the VISTA webinars page of the VISTA campus. So this is on the VISTA campus. At the top there's the members section. All these member webinars are located there. And so it's a great place to go if a VISTA member maybe they missed a live webinar, maybe there was an event they had to go to, they couldn't attend it live. So they could go to the VISTA campus, catch the on-demand webinar, or a member who's looking for additional training on a specific topic that's been discussed. So we also want to go over in-service training. So a little further into the VISTA lifecycle and timeline of VISTA service, VISTA headquarters does offer a 3.5-day in-service training, or IST, because of course we love our acronyms. So we offer this IST to members early in their service terms, and we say early because we target VISTAs who are in months 2 through 5 of service at the time of the training. An IST, just a brief overview, it addresses common training needs among VISTA members. It provides an environment for VISTA members to discuss their projects and ask questions in person. And it offers a forum for VISTA members to connect with their peers. The networking aspect is a big part of it. And at this point in their service, that 2 to 5 month mark, so we expect participants to be able to really identify their training needs based on their VISTA assignment descriptions and their conversations with their supervisor, and will be able to apply knowledge from their in-service training for the remainder of their terms. So whether, at least over a year left if we're targeting that 2 to 5 month range. And so these trainings are optional. They're not required. They're optional to members, and we do ask if they choose and are selected to attend that they attend in full. So they, if they're selected, we'll provide the travel for them, the hotel, the meals. So if they're selected to attend, we expect them to attend all sessions, because there are often members on the wait list who may not be selected to attend that would certainly appreciate that opportunity. So we want to be fair to all VISTAs. And for this IST, there are 4 core training modules and an additional 6 elective training modules developed by CNCS. And you see on the slide those 4 core modules. VISTA members eligible to attend a specific IST based on their time frame in service, their geographic area, and capacity limitations. They will receive an email invitation to their one and only opportunity to attend a specific IST. And supervisor approval is required for them to attend. The time at in-service training is considered part of VISTA service, and so the days count as regular days of service. So basically what we're saying is no leave days are needed on the part of the member for the 4 calendar days that they are at IST. And then we also want to mention the VISTA campus. So the VISTA training unit helps to update and improve the VISTA campus regularly. This includes tutorials, documents, learning resources, and, as mentioned earlier, the webinar recordings. If you have not taken time to explore it yet, please do so. There are sections specifically for members as well as leaders, as well as supervisors. And when you log into the campus, you have additional permissions, such as being able to post comments on the Supervisor Cafe discussion forums. As you look to train your VISTA members, explore the VISTA member section of the campus because there's a plethora of information to get you started. You can use some of them as is, or you can certainly adjust and customize the resources to fit the needs of your specific VISTA member.
Thank you very much, Chris and Khadija, for that very thorough and useful overview of the trainings that the VISTA program offers. We see a couple of questions that came in the chat, so I'll answer maybe two of them now, and then we'll continue. One of them was a question about in-service training, and does the VISTA program pay for or book flights? Yes, the VISTA will get more details about the in-service training later, but the VISTA program does pay for flights and ticketed travel for VISTA members who are approved to attend the in-service training. And they get all that detail via email and all the instructions as to how to make that work. The second question, there was a lot of chat about the VISTA program and something that we used to call VISTA online courses that were a series of 4 different courses that VISTA members could take during their service. We did offer those, and there's been a little bit of a break in those courses. They used to be offered a couple times a year. Right now, we do not have a time frame as to if or when they will resume. We're trying to get some resources from those courses posted on the campus because they are useful. But as of right now, we do not have a future date for those courses being offered. But if that does change, we'll certainly send out information to sponsors and to VISTA members so that they have an opportunity for more professional development opportunities. So I know there's a lot more questions coming in. Keep them coming in. We're going to continue with content, and we'll have time at the end of the session to answer more questions. So next, we'll take a look at our agenda to see where we are throughout the session. So up to now, we've covered the importance of training, which included what it is and why it's essential. We then discussed what trainings and professional development opportunities VISTA headquarters offers to VISTA members. We're now going to talk about the responsibilities that you as VISTA sponsors have in regards to training. And you probably already know this again, but as a VISTA sponsor, there are responsibilities that you have with regard to training your VISTA members. It is not just up to VISTA headquarters to support and train the VISTA members, because you as the VISTA sponsor need to and should want to make sure that your VISTA member is well prepared and fully equipped with the knowledge, tools, and resources needed to successfully accomplish their VAD and finish their service. So here are some of the responsibilities. They include ensure that VISTA members can fully participate in and complete all aspects of the VISTA member orientation. Develop an on-site orientation and training, or OSAT, plan that is consistent with project goals and that meets minimum desired outcomes. Submit the OSAT plan to the CNCS state or regional office 30 days prior to the VISTA member start date of service. And then, of course, you'll want to make sure to adjust the on-site orientation and training plan as necessary to meet individual VISTA member needs, as it's a critical foundation to VISTA members' experience. Then, you'll assess the VISTA members' needs, especially related to accomplishing their VAD, and adjust ongoing training as necessary. Prepare and support the VISTA members as they settle in and begin implementing their VISTA assignment descriptions. And if you are a multi-site VISTA project with sites in different parts of the state or the country, please know that even if the structure of the program makes sense to you, your VISTA member is very likely to be confused. Think about it. They're a VISTA member serving with a specific organization at a specific site, potentially with a different title. Very confusing. Many VISTA members are confused and then decide that they don't even want to tell people that they're a VISTA because it's too confusing. That's not good. So as a multi-site project, you will want to provide a general OSAT to all VISTA members to orient them to organization, the larger VISTA project, and relevant policies and procedures of the VISTA project. You will also want to instruct sub-sites to provide site-specific orientation and training for their VISTA members to include unique details about that specific site, the local community, and how the site connects to the larger VISTA project. Remember that you do not necessarily need to create everything on your own, as many elements of trainings may already have been developed and simply need adjustment. In your training, you want to make sure to cover a couple of brief things. The history of your VISTA project, how it got started, why it exists, what its purpose and structure are. You'll want to talk about the introductions and collaborations with organization staff and community members so that the VISTA member gets to know them and has the opportunity to work with them throughout their year of service. Make sure you also include the purpose and details of the VISTA assignment description, because some VISTA members are also confused about that, and you want to make sure that they understand it and know what steps to take to implement it. You also want to make sure that you develop and complete a work plan for the year with your VISTA member that most likely starts with the VAD and helps the VISTA member and the supervisor to really think about what will be accomplished, specific action steps, and skills along the way. And then there's skills development, which is very much related to professional development and training. And the VISTA member can continually identify skills and the knowledge that they need to accomplish their VAD. So be sure as their supervisor that you ask your VISTA member to do the same. This will help to better acknowledge what additional training is necessary to fulfill the duties of the VAD. As you think about the training that the VISTA headquarters offers that Khadija and Chris mentioned earlier, and when they're offered, and you think about the responsibilities that VISTA sponsors have to train their VISTA members, you're probably wondering when is a good time or when is the best time to offer training opportunities. So now, think back to the previous group of VISTAs that you had in mind when you saw this image earlier and we did the annotation tool activity. Think also back to where you said on the VISTA lifecycle you said that group of VISTAs likely was in their service. So now we're going to ask you to use the chat panel to talk about what specific type of training you think would be useful at that time in the life cycle. So while you type ideas, I'll give you an example. If I said that my group of VISTAs was just past the contributor phase and right before the peak performer phase, I might say that the training they would need is in conflict resolution and leading effective meetings. This is because sometimes when VISTA members are new to a community, they may be met with some resistance and conflict, some disagreement, and conflict resolution would help them to think about the larger picture ways to structure their conversations to minimize conflict and bring people together. That pairs nicely with training on leading effective meetings so that as they begin to transition out of their service, they're purposeful about the content and purpose of that meeting, and they outline the details of the meeting so that attendees get the most out of their time together. So I see a lot of people are typing, and hopefully some good information is coming in because it will help us and it will help VISTA supervisors who are on the call. So as we knew, a lot of VISTAs are at different start and end dates, as some people say, and there are different stages in the life cycle, so it might be a little bit harder for some of you to think about it. And you don't have to answer this right now if you don't have an answer, but it is a question to think about as you go forward with different groups of VISTAs that you have. What types of training specifically do you think would be useful where they are in their VISTA service? And I see a couple of other responses that are coming in depending on their time in service. Specific training would be outcome-based performance management if they're in the contributor phase. That's an excellent idea. Trainings on project management if they're at the beginning and want to know what is it like to be part of and manage a VISTA project. And then taking ownership of a project to lead meetings and communicate effectively. That could be something that's useful all throughout their service. So these are great, providing templates and examples for fundraising. These are all practical examples, and we know that VISTA members and supervisors love practical examples. And before we move on, I want to say, if you see any great ideas that are in the chat, we recommend feel free to copy and paste, do a Control-A and select all. These might be some ideas that give you ideas on how to support your VISTA member moving forward with trainings at different types of their service. So let's move forward and get even more practical. Think about the badge that you have for your members, the VISTA assignment descriptions. If you have one nearby, feel free to take a look at it, but if you don't worry about it. During some of the orientations and trainings that are led by VISTA headquarters, we have our VISTA members look at their VAD in depth and examine their VAD activities. Hopefully, the VISTA member looked at it prior to accepting their position and right when they started their service. But we know that their VAD is essential in their first few weeks of service, and it's important that you talk with them about their VAD during their on-site orientation and training. As we know, the VISTA assignment description, or VAD, can and should be used for multiple purposes, including you can initially orient and train your members on their VAD after you select them and before they start their service. This may be done via a conference call or in a quick email before they start their service, giving them tips and tricks and tools they can use to prepare for service. They use the VISTA assignment description during their VISTA member orientation that Khadija and Chris talked about earlier. They use it to supplement what VISTA headquarters provides, and it'll help you give your VISTA members initial training on some of the activities that they will be doing. The VAD is also essential in their on-site orientation and training that you provide so that you make good use of more focused time to go into depth about what the VISTA member will be doing and why it's important. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, the VAD is essential throughout the year of service and the VISTA lifecycle to constantly reference it when you see opportunities for professional growth, enhanced learning, and also times when the VISTA member might be struggling or succeeding. As you know, the VAD serves two purposes. It's a tool for recruitment, and once you found the right person, it's a tool for training and project management. Even the perfect candidate needs training, because the VAD is a roadmap for a year's worth of training, as we outlined earlier. When you look at the VADs in aggregate, if you have multiple ones, you find the themes that turn into the topics for your on-site orientation and training and your year-long training. So spend time training your VISTA members on what the VAD literally says, because it'll help them know what they literally need to do. And as the VAD is a living document, and you may update it with approval from the CNCS state or regional office, be sure to update your OSOP plan as well. If you need to brush up on how to create an effective VAD, download the Helpful Links document in the Handouts panel at the bottom of the screen. There's a resource in there called Creating Effective VADs that's located on the VISTA campus. When you think about the VAD, do you know who wrote it? That may be you, it may be someone else, but that's essential information to know when you're looking at the VAD and trying to help your VISTA member understand it. So look at the VAD example on the screen. We're going to do a very quick chat activity based on the second VAD activity. So I'll first read what that activity is. The goal of the project is to help ensure that children of incarcerated parents receive the educational, social, and emotional support they need to help them break the cycle of poverty. The Mentor Core VISTA project will build the capacity of WCS by developing a sustainable volunteer recruitment and management system for its mentoring program. And the member activity that we're going to focus on for this chat activity says, the activity is to refine or develop systems for screening and matching mentors, and also develop or revise documents related to internal policies and procedures regarding mentor recruitment and matching. So let's hear from you now. Based on the second activity, and you might be able to see it on the screen as well, what specific trainings will you recommend for this VISTA member to be able to accomplish during this activity? We'll give you time to type those in the chat as we continue talking about a few things, such as training for this activity and others should really focus on the role of the person and the specific activities outlined. You can do a similar activity with your VADs and your VISTA members, having them look at their VAD and think about specific trainings that they need and how they may go about getting them. And we see a lot of responses coming in the chat already, which is great. People are thinking about this and have been thinking about this. Remember that as much as you want the VISTA member to identify training needs, they may not know what they do not know. And you can help them with that as you help interpret and comprehend their VAD. Related to this is something called the Individual Development Plan, or IDP, that is encouraged but not required. It helps VISTA members to not just think about what skills, knowledge, and resources they need to succeed, but also think about their own professional development opportunities. So I'll briefly mention that at the VISTA in-service trainings, or IST, VISTA staff conduct a session that includes working with their VAD to develop an individual development plan. And as you can see on the screen, in the first column, VISTA members write the skills that they need to accomplish their VAD. In the middle column, they assign a priority level based on how important it is to acquire that skill. And then finally, in the third column, they enter learning opportunities and resources that they know are available to develop that skill or resources they want to acquire. These may be resources that you have at your disposal at your VISTA project or on the VISTA campus or elsewhere. And keep in mind they could be tangible resources such as workshops, classes, or online tutorials, or they could be intangible resources such as shadowing an experienced staff member at the sponsor or at a partner organization. We talk about this at IST because VISTA members who attend the in-service training begin this process and hopefully continue it during their year of service. It really helps to identify training needs that they have. And then supplementing the VAD for training purposes can be done with a few other things as well. We suggest reviewing the overall VISTA project design and plan with your VISTA member, as it may help spark new ideas on how to accomplish tasks if they understand the bigger picture. If your project had previous VISTA members, one great suggestion a previous supervisor mentioned is conduct an exit interview and ask the VISTA member how their year went, but also ask them what information they wish they had known and how that information could help future VISTA members. And also, you or someone reviewed the VISTA member's AmeriCorps application when they applied to the position. And of course, their application included a list of their experience and skills. One great idea is to go back and look at that information again to refamiliarize yourself with it so that you can incorporate those into your trainings and activities. Small things make a big difference in the VISTA years of service. Looking back at our agenda, we're getting close to the end. We recently discussed the responsibilities of the VISTA sponsor in regards to training and when it's a good time to implement or offer training opportunities. We then provided some examples of how to use the VAD for training and to highlight training needs. So now I'm going to transition to our guest speakers again to talk about the resources that are available on the VISTA campus.
Thanks, Eric. So as Eric was mentioning and going over, so VISTA headquarters offers, orientations, trainings, and professional development opportunities to VISTA members. So briefly, just want to take a look at some resources on the VISTA campus to help you locate those training resources. Resources, resources, resources. So you want the practical and the tangible, so here it comes. There are numerous resources on the campus pertaining to training as well as orientation. And this slide, as you can see in the screenshot, there are a couple examples. One here is the leadership training module. And this offers insight for VISTA members based on where they are in their life cycle of service, as well as the type of skill they are looking to learn and grow. There's also another example, building a training calendar. Again, consistent with the VISTA life cycle, this tool helps you think of times and points in service that make sense for training. You can adapt this as you desire and plan ahead for future trainings as well. Another example in this screenshot, tips for volunteer training. And briefly, I just want to mention, so you go to vistacampus.gov, it's up in the supervisor section. You can find all these resources. On the left-hand side, after going to the sponsor supervisor section, there's a link to access these resources, and there's a ton. So tips for volunteer training. Even though these tips are written in a way to help VISTA members think about how to train volunteers, most of the ideas and suggestions are still very much applicable for your planning a training for VISTA members. Also, VISTA assignment description. That's a big one that's often requested and asked for. So training manual for VISTA sponsors, another useful piece of information to help guide you in understanding and effectively using the VAD. This tool is designed for VISTA sponsors, but you can certainly use many of the elements and as well as the underlying elements to train your VISTA members on their VAD. So please be sure to search for and locate these additional materials, the recorded webinars that we mentioned, as well as information that will assist you in thinking about how to create, how to adjust or offer training opportunities to VISTA members, and whether you provide the training or you provide the ability for the VISTA member to attend another training. In addition to what is on the VISTA campus, please realize that your organization may already have training expertise in-house as well as training resources for VISTAs. So definitely take advantage of information you find online, whether that's free information in courses or perhaps paid services if possible. And remember that training does not have to be complicated nor complex. Just a little bit goes a really long way, and it's a big part for a big reason for why many VISTAs serve is for that professional experience, the training they receive.
And these are just some of the many resources that Chris mentioned that are on the VISTA campus, so take some time to explore when you have a chance. We know we've covered a lot of information so far, so let's move on now to look at some suggested next steps for you, and then we'll get to an evaluation and questions and answers. So what can you take away and start working on? Well, you could conduct a training needs assessment using the VAD, since the VAD outlines the specific VISTA member activities. You could develop or locate meaningful opportunities for training and development to help VISTA members obtain the information and training that they need. You may want to customize any existing training that you have or create a new training that's specifically tailored to the needs of your VISTA member and VAD activities. The stronger your training is, the likely the more involved and engaged the VISTA member will be. During your on-site orientation and training, review your VISTA project plan and any training plans with your VISTA members. Ask them for input and suggestions. And then also, again, since we started at in-service training, work with your VISTA members to create and adapt and update their individual development plan. As we mentioned earlier, it helps not just with their VAD and service, but also professional development as well. So now with that, we're going to move on to the evaluation. We really want to know what you thought about this webinar and ideas you have for future webinars. So while we move to the question and answer session, please take the time to complete the brief survey. You'll see the link on the screen in the survey link pod that just showed up on the screen. And we can also post it in the chat if you need to. But we do truly look at your feedback and appreciate any information you have about this and future webinars. As you complete the evaluation and feedback, we're going to take this time to answer some questions. There's a lot of questions I have queued up in the chat panel, but we are also going to open the phone lines for verbal questions, so I'll turn it over to our partners at LSI to verbally mention how people can ask a question over the phone.
Thanks, Eric. If you decided to dial into the webinar or had Adobe Connect call you back, you can ask questions using your phone. To ask questions over the phone, press *# and you will be placed in the queue. When it's your turn to ask a question, you will hear the prompt, "Go ahead, caller," and then you may proceed with your question. Once again, go to ask a question over the phone, press *# to be placed into the queue.
So while we wait for questions coming in over the phone, I will start rattling off some questions and answers in no particular, well, it actually is in order. So question from Nicole is about the VISTA Campus webinars page, and there's a webinar on there for August. Yes, we apologize. There's been a little bit of a delay in us updating the information on the VISTA Campus, but if you do go to that website in the webinars for VISTA's page, we will eventually have the future VISTA webinars posted there that are live. Also know that on that page there's webinars for VISTAs, webinars for supervisors, and webinars for leaders. All of the recorded webinars that we talk about that are on demand are posted on that website. So even if you don't see an upcoming webinar, you and your VISTA members can access past recorded webinars on that website. Next question from Kayla is, when does the VISTA program send VISTA gear to sponsors for delivery to the member? So I'm going to adjust that a little bit and actually say, as part of the VISTA member orientation, we let the VISTA members know that usually within their first 2 to 3 weeks of service, they'll get a specific email from the VISTA member support unit that gives very detailed instructions on how the VISTA member can order their VISTA gear, the free polo shirt and a few other items. There is additional VISTA materials, not gear. There's additional free VISTA materials that sponsors can order from the National Service website. But in terms of the polo shirt, the water bottle, the things that the VISTA program gives VISTA members for free, all the members that attend the VISTA member orientation will get an email with instructions on how to order that. The next question is from a few people about if there's a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Yes. You'll see the handouts to download panel, and we'll make it accessible in a minute after we finish the survey. But in that handouts to download panel, you'll be able to download the slide notes, which is a copy of the PowerPoint, as well as the helpful links document to give you additional resources in what Khadija and Chris mentioned earlier. Another question about in-service training comes from Mary. Where is the VISTA training if the VISTA gets chosen to attend a face-to-face in-person training? So without going into very specific detail, because it does change, we do conduct these in-service trainings regionally, so in 5 or 6 different locations around the country. So 1, it helps reduce costs. 2, somewhat more importantly, it helps not have VISTA members travel too far. We know people don't like to travel for 6 or 8 or 15 hours. So we do structure them regionally based on where people are serving to assist with that as well. And again, keep the questions coming. I see there's no questions coming in over the phone, so that's great. Jim asked the question, does the state and regional office need a copy of the updated on-site orientation and training plan? Yes. So usually if it's a small tweak, like you're just changing one word, it's not a big deal. But anytime you update anything like the VISTA assignment description or the on-site orientation and training plan, the state and regional office does need to see it and approve it. They may just sign off and say it's okay. They may have questions, but if you at least email that to them to make sure they know what your plan is, they can advise you if there's additional next steps. The next question, I just saw a couple coming in. The next question comes from John, and we mentioned this earlier. The question is about the online college courses. Online courses for college credit. They're not currently being offered. If we are able to get those resurrected and resumed, we will certainly send out information. But as of right now, those courses are unfortunately on a bit of a hiatus. But we do have other information on the campus specifically about grant writing, volunteer mobilization, and resource development on the campus to assist members who previously were able to take the course so that everyone has access to some of those resources. See if there's any other questions. There was one question that came in earlier, and that was, how do you recommend that we supplement the trainings offered by VISTA headquarters, the ones that we talked about earlier, the in-service training, the VISTA member orientation? And I'll briefly say some of the ways you can supplement the trainings we offer. First, we strongly recommend all sponsors go to the starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus to see what VISTA members are asked to do and required to do as part of their VISTA member orientation. That'll give you a really good starting point for knowing the details of what we offer and how you can add to it. Secondly, we strongly suggest that you look at your VISTA project plan and your VAD, including the specific VISTA member activities. Because sometimes we'll cover details, for example, in the in-service training, we talk about the VAD and the individual development plan, but only you would be able to go into the specifics of why that activity is important and really work with your VISTA to help them understand it better. So a lot of it stems from looking at more detail online as to what the VISTA program offers, and then looking from there as to what else the VISTA member needs, including asking the VISTA members themselves what additional resources they need. We have time for about 2 more questions, and I'm quickly checking to see. So I see one that came in that says, when VISTA policies and company policies clash, which policy takes precedent? That is an excellent and a complicated question, but it's a good one. So in a perfect world, VISTA policies and the organizational policies would be in alignment or supplement each other. If there is any clash, obviously, especially if it's relating to politics or something kind of more serious, since they are a VISTA member serving through a federal organization, our policies are essential. They would have to follow those policies, otherwise there could be a chance that they could be removed from service. We don't want that to happen, but it is definitely important that they adhere to our VISTA policies. If there's any discrepancy and there's a serious concern about clashing of policies, I would strongly recommend you reach out to your CNCS state or regional office with specific details. They may be able to see if they actually are more in alignment than you think, but definitely make sure that your VISTA is adhering to the VISTA program policies so that there's no question or concern on our side if they're eligible and able to serve as a VISTA member. So what I'm going to do now is, because we're at the top of the hour, I'll stay on and answer a few more questions in the chat, but in terms of actually finishing out the webinar, we'll go ahead and move on to the last couple of slides. That way, anyone who needs to leave can, but we'll stay on for a few more minutes answering questions in the chat. So I do want to say thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. First, I'll mention we have a new email address. If you have questions specifically for the VISTA training unit, you can email vistatraining@cns.gov. Second, we talked about you can visit the webinars page of the VISTA campus to see upcoming future webinars, and soon you'll see a webinar up there, which is our next monthly supervised webinar titled Aligning Your Project with VISTA's 4 Key Principles. That webinar is Tuesday, October 22nd, and will take place 1 hour earlier than normal, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Eastern. And I'll briefly mention that this session is ideal for any supervisor or sponsor staff involved in the creation and updating of all things related to the VISTA project. It'll explain what the 4 key principles are, offer recommendations as to how you can introduce and structure your VISTA project towards those 4 principles. And finally, I want to say thank you. Not just for you joining the webinar today, I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Khadija Carr and Chris Hawks, my fabulous guest speakers, also providing editors and content on the team, Barbara Reynolds and Andy King. Thank you to Steve and Kim, our partners at LSI, for helping to manage the Adobe Connect technology. And of course, I want to thank you for being VISTA sponsors, VISTA supervisors. We hope that you have a wonderful year with your VISTA members. And from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS, thank you for serving in the very important and influential role of VISTA